Then I think we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 5 of All in Loyalty. All things loyalty, all in one place. I keep on trying to find other ways to say it, but the goal of this podcast is really that we can cover everything that has to do with the loyalty program industry, all of the developments, all of the innovations, any sort of novelty that may have happened, and that you don't need to go anywhere else. So you can watch or listen during any of your commutes or anything like that. Spend 2 hours out of your day every 2 weeks, and basically by then you're up to speed. And we had started this thinking, okay, are we actually going to have enough content? Is there going to be enough news to actually justify having some of these headlines to cover every 2 weeks? And oh boy, were we correct to the point where, generally speaking, there's actually 6 or 7, if not more, of these headlines to actually go over in the process of doing our research actually for these episodes. So it's got to do with all sorts of things, whether it's a new loyalty program that's being brought out, whether it's like an innovation in the space that's being brought out, whether it's like M&A, any of these other things. Like there's tons and tons of headlines that are going out. Just look at the other episodes um, to actually keep up with everything. And with that being said, I want to start off with the call to action because we usually save it for the end, but let's call it out right away. Be sure to follow us on Spotify. Be sure to follow us on X. Be sure to follow us on YouTube and everywhere else that might even be halfway relevant, because that is how we get the word out, and that is how we get people interested and get people talking about the loyalty industry. One of the, I would say, most vital and most important sort of sectors that are really growing right now that people still aren't talking about at the same level as, for example, one of these novelty things like AI and hype things. So, I mean, it's something that's worth mentioning. But with me, as always, we have the jefes, the why do I keep defaulting to generalissimos? I don't know why, but the the loyalty program titans that are Gabriele and Gianluca. Guys, how are you? Gabriele, first throwing it over to you. How are things? Where are you right now? Your background's slightly different than usual.
Yes, I'm doing very good. I'm in Dubai since 2 weeks now for some very important meetings, and actually flying back tomorrow, back to Zurich. So looking forward to a bit of calm time in Zurich. It was intense 2 weeks here in Dubai with everything,
So you
but
haven't
it was
had
very
really
fun.
time to enjoy Dubai really to the fullest. It's been like all work, basically.
During the day it was work, during the night it was enjoying Dubai.
Very nice. Sounds good. Very, very good. And Gianluca, on your side, how is it? How is it having your brother over? All good?
It was good. Lots of fun, that's for sure. Lots of work, that as well. But always a good thing to have some of the team or the whole team in general in person. We can get so much done versus over calls with, as we experienced before we started recording with the connection issues we had.
Yeah.
So definitely super cool to have him here, and yeah, looking forward to potentially more of that in the future.
I'm not gonna lie,
Definitely.
I was always feeling intense FOMO when I kept hearing about the team that was over there and everything. I was always wanting to know, like, what happened, what was up, what's going on, and everything. But yeah, on the
Yeah.
business side of things, on the work side of things, I mean, there's gonna be some pretty cool updates hopefully coming out soon. But yeah, it's been very, very fun, and I mean, the boys are still taking the time out of their day, even on business trips and everything, to come here and record the episode of the podcast. So, first of all, big props for that, and thank you, because it's really interesting, and there are some really cool articles to talk about right now. And we can maybe even dive into it right away so as to not take away any unnecessary time from everybody's busy schedules. And there are some really interesting topics for today. I know I say that every time, but it is something that's worth talking about, especially here because we have kind of two sort of first of its kind articles that I would talk about here, both of which are very, very interesting and very relevant, I think, for a lot of people, because it involves sort of both of them. It's kind of a theme. It's like the democratization almost of the loyalty programs, right? It's like bringing it to the masses. People that wouldn't have had access to it before suddenly having access to it now. And this all starts actually, of all places, I wouldn't have expected it, but it all begins with L'Oreal. They are, if anybody knows them, hang on. They have their really nice. I mean, they're a very well-known beauty company, beauty brand. Everybody knows it. It's a household name at this point. And they recently brought out in the DACH region only. So this is Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. They brought out L'Orealistar, which I hope I pronounce it correctly, is a very interesting development in the sector, but also in the loyalty sector in total, because it has to do with it's a loyalty program for influencers, but not for just any influencers, micro and nano influencers. So this is a program that people can actually register for as of 1,000 followers. So I could literally register for this myself if I wanted to, if I was a big L'Oreal fanboy or whatever. And it's interesting because you have always had these loyalty programs that have been there to reach various groups of people. This is one of the first ones that we've seen that actually attacks this particular segment. And it's a very underrated segment for a couple of key reasons. They talk about micro and nano influencers, and one of the main reasons why they talk about reaching out to them in particular is their engagement rates, because they have very shockingly high engagement rates compared to everybody else. Because when your crowd is smaller, you automatically tend to have people following you and paying attention to what you do that are more invested, right? If you're into a topic, you'll delve into it a bit more. You won't just go to the mainstream ones. You'll also follow the secondary and smaller channels as long as they do something that's interesting to you. So this is already quite an interesting development, and we're going to dive into a little bit more of like the mechanics of how this works in just a little bit. But first of all, maybe we can get a little bit of a lay of the land and some first impressions about what this is, what you guys' initial thoughts are of it, if this is maybe the beginning of something bigger, because they did recently announce that they are expanding this also into Italy and the UK. So that's also potentially a sign of success. But yeah, Gabriella, let's start with you on this one. What were your initial thoughts when you first took a look at this headline?
I think it's a really cool approach. I mean, everybody knows that larger influencers are being paid quite a bit of money to promote certain brands. So I think going the other way and taking nano micro influencers to promote your brand, where you don't get actually cash to post something or to talk about the brand, but you're actually already using the brand, you like the brand, and maybe you're already creating content about the brand itself, and now being rewarded for it with, as it says in the article, with the stars, basically loyalty points that you can then redeem again for products from L'Oreal. It's a completely different approach, and really goes much more into having authentic content from people that are not, again, being paid to post about the brand. Because again, with large influencers, you always have the issue of, do they post about it because they like the product, or do they post about it because they get a lot of money for it? In this case, you actually, if you hear a very clear, let's say, feedback or post about a certain product from L'Oreal, it's a completely different story as a audience member, because you know that that person actually means that, and it's not just doing it for cash. So I think it's a really cool approach. I think their biggest, from my perspective, the biggest challenge will be to basically keep the economics in check, because it's always the same thing. As soon as you don't have a certain revenue stream attached to a loyalty activity, giving points out of it, which is then liability on your books, is always a bit more difficult to calculate. Because again, if you spend $100 with me and I give you back $1 worth of points, it's a very easy calculation. I would just put that dollar aside. In this case, you're making a post, I give you some points, and then you can spend it for some products. Those products obviously have a certain costs. So I think if they figure that out and they can basically put it into their budgets in a way that actually works and that is sustainable and that they can scale it, this could be a huge, huge success.
It's also very interesting that, in particular, like, of all the different industries for it to start in, I mean, I guess it's probably the most appropriate that it starts in beauty, just because like the media following and the social media presence around the beauty industry and beauty products tends to be one of the highest in the world. I mean, we've had beauty YouTubers being the most subscribed on the entire platform at some point, and on Instagram, I mean, the Kylie Jenners of the world and any other sort of, beauty or cosmetics person ends up having a massive amount of influence and then cashing in on that in business. But yeah, how about your perspective on this, Gianluca? Do you have anything to add on top of what Gabriele said?
I'm super curious to see how it goes, since from what I read, it's a pilot or a test that they're doing in DACH region.
Yeah.
So probably something they want to see. Okay, how does it work here? And then if it works well, they'll expand it to, as you said, more countries of Europe and maybe worldwide even at some point. I'm so curious because on the one hand, it almost sounds like it could be an affiliate program where instead of paying through affiliate links and direct purchases, they reward these micro and nano influencers with points that they can then use for products, or as we can see right now on the screen, it says also money can't buy experiences that no one can have access to unless they're invited. And that does change the dynamic a little bit, because I also assume that there won't be a hard sell from these influencers like it maybe would if they say, okay, like affiliate link in the description, or if you apply this code, you get a percentage or whatnot, but more genuine actual product reviews where, if again by simply doing them they receive points, it could be more authentic. And I assume what they're doing is also, and this I think goes back to our conversation that we had in the previous podcast episodes, where I'm wondering if L'Oreal sees this as marketing, and it's just a marketing campaign in a way where they say, okay, instead of investing budget into ads or into pushing big influencers, let's create a loyalty program around nano and micro influencers where you create user generated content, they get points for it, and with those points they can get something out of it. And those points that they earn are basically marketing budget that is being spent on the program, or that are being used. And then I guess also the topic that Gabriele is mentioning, or talking about the whole, how do they finance the points or the stars that they're given. So that's something I'm really curious about. It would be interesting to have an internal view on how this program was launched, and with from what perspective it came, which department pushed it, and if it was a marketing budget that they received and said, okay, cool, we can finance the points like that, or the stars.
I feel like it would be interesting too, 6 months from now, to maybe set a deadline for another episode where we actually review how the program went and see how that actually ended up going about, because it feels like there's a lot of potential. It really does. On one hand, like Gabriela said, you've got the potential to reward a ton of people. And when it comes to loyalty, oh my God, psychologically, imagine nano influencers or people with 1,000+ followers. That means for a lot of those people, it's probably going to be their first brand deal, so to speak, and they're of course going to have that etched into their memories, and they're going to stay very loyal to something like that because they were the first ones to actually offer or extend that sort of opportunity to people. And it feels like that sort of psychology, that sort of gratitude that ends up coming from that angle ends up having, garnering a lot of that, I dare say, almost organic loyalty, that you have to some of these brands, that even after you end up not doing it, or whatever it ends up being, that's still always going to be with you. It's like, oh man, I was basically a L'Oreal partner for a while. That's what people are going to say, even if it's not official or whatever. They'll say basically they paid me to make content about their product, So it's really exciting. And there was a quote. This is from Simon Preuss, the head of social and advocacy at L'Oreal. He says, as a market leader in the beauty industry, we already rely heavily on influencer marketing, and we currently work with around 2,000 influencers in the DACH region alone on a campaign basis. The first rollout has shown that L'Oreal Star improves brand loyalty and has a positive impact on posting frequency. With our beauty and social media expertise, we want to support the young generation of content creators in achieving their goals. that seems to be a very smart thing to do for exactly maybe the reasons that I mentioned before. It does seem like a win-win on both sides. You know, they get a lot of that loyalty and brand trust and a lot of that advertising and everything. It makes me wonder, though, is the program itself also going to be, like, advertised? You know, like, if you have, like, a micro influencer that has, I don't know, 3,000 followers, will they then also make posts like, "Hey, guys, just so you know, I'm part of the L'Oreal Star program and everything." You know, is that gonna be, like, an extra incentivized thing, or is it gonna be more subtle? Are we just gonna randomly see them suddenly posting, like, 5 different L'Oreal product try-ons a week or something like that, you know? Is this gonna be I don't know. I somehow a part of me was wondering if, you know, when people advertise on their YouTube channels or Instagrams or whatever, there's always like a little hashtag sponsor or something like that. Could this be a way of maybe circumventing that or something? That was also like something that popped up in my head when I was going through
That's
it.
a
I don't know.
that's actually a good question because all the platforms, all the social media platforms, I think require you to say whether it's a paid promotion or not. And does this go under paid promotion or not?
If
That's a
it's a
good question.
loyalty program, though.
Why would it? Yeah,
Yeah, and you have to buy the product yourself. So I don't think like you don't get it for
true.
free.
Yeah,
Most of the
yeah.
times it's like, okay, either I mean you have like influencers with 500K, a million, 2 million followers where you most times get the products for free. And then it's like supplied by or sponsored by, etc. Or you get cash and then you anyways have to basically post it. It's kind of an ad. But in this case, I assume you have to buy the product yourself as a nano or micro influencer, and then you post about it, then you get points. So I think it's actually a very good way to go around the supplied by or sponsored by
Mhm.
topic and actually show that again genuine posts, authentic posts that that people don't really think about this is an ad. They will for sure push the program because they want to build up users. For me, main question is really how they will manage it from an economic perspective. Because most of the times big companies have fixed budgets that can be used per year. And in theory, a loyalty program is very difficult to manage with a fixed budget. Again, because it's tied to the revenue. So the more revenue I do, the more points I actually can give out. In this case, it's not that they can just say, go ahead, do how many posts you want, etc. Because at a certain point, they'll also wanna sell products. So that's my big question, how they will manage that part.
Maybe with
But again,
maybe with the money can't buy experience, I think they'll probably offset it quite a bit. Because I could also imagine that a lot of the a lot of these size influencers, they also think about, you know, if loyalty programs in general just give you enough points so that you can buy more products or more of whatever you anyways buy, that's cool. But I believe that for them, it's probably the highest value is to be part of these exclusive experiences that are that are invite only, and
That's
they
good
know,
content too.
okay, yeah, exactly, good content. It's also exclusive. That means not everyone gets there, and you can't buy yourself in there. Of course, I'm sure they invite um, the relevant people, but having access to that is, I imagine, pretty cool as an influencer. Again, as you say, more content plus maybe connections, networking, relationships that you build there that might even give you that extra edge of, okay, I can get more out of this whole
Mhm.
loyalty program, not just be a nano influencer for them, but maybe they like me so much that, you know, I get pushed into a different lane of influencer, or get a deal out of it. So maybe they offset it with that, because I'm sure those events, it's marginal cost for them if one, two, three, or five more people join. I imagine. I would assume.
yeah, but then the question is how many people can you make happy with the program itself? Because of course I'm
How
posting
many
and getting these
stars you need to
points.
earn? Yeah, true.
Yeah, you need to earn, and then actually how many people can redeem for it? Because if you have, I don't know, 10, 20, 30, 40,000 people participating in this, and then 5 can go to an event, it's like it's a very tight
They
redemption
talk about
option.
working with 2,000 influencers in the DACH region. Imagine if all 2,000 were to suddenly show up at your event.
Okay, that's a
That's
different story.
suddenly
a few more catering bucks.
Yeah. But I guess it all does sort of boil down a bit to, like, I mean, you guys sort of together, I think, brought it home pretty nicely. Like, you can tell that, yes, there is a lot to be gained from the whole thing, right? There's a lot of, like, good advertising that you can do. There's a lot of, like, early relationships that you can build with budding influencers. And out of those, like, who knows which one's going to be the next, big hit or whatever, big hit channel. So that's also something. You get the chance to impact a lot of lives and everything. But at the end of the day, yeah, it all boils down to the economics of it and everything. So, like Gianluca mentioned, is this just a chunk from their marketing budget, or are they really like setting something aside for this? I guess this is something that would require probably a lot of attention and a dedicated team and everything like that. Not to mention the people that actually have to then communicate back and forth with these micro influencers, because they need some sort of point of contact too. So, I mean, I can only imagine how much sort of infrastructure you would actually need to go into a program like this. Before, but I feel like the vision, like, it's all being sort of fueled by a vision of like one individual probably who thinks like this has a lot of potential. Let me do this for a bit and then I can prove it to you. It kind of feels that way to me. I don't know. But
Always like that.
you, in general though, do you see it succeeding, Gabriela? Do you think this is going to be a big thing, and maybe even beyond the beauty industry as well, like maybe in other industries?
100%. I mean, again, at the end of the day, content on social media is nothing else than digital word of mouth. Let's say with much more content around, in a sense, because you have a visual, you have text, etc. You maybe have a video. So I think it makes a huge amount of sense to push that part. Again, people like to buy when somebody they know actually recommends it to them. So I think that makes a huge amount of sense. And I also think that, as you just said, like, they start with 2,000 influencers, so it will be something where they get started, they make a pilot, they start understanding with the economics behind, they start understanding with the return on investment, what does it bring, etc. And then based on that, they can actually optimize it. So I think it makes a huge amount of sense, can be easily transferred to other industries. I wouldn't see one industry where, let's say, that wouldn't work. So again, word of mouth is the oldest marketing tool. So
Yeah.
using that in many kinds of ways and industries makes a huge amount of sense. I'm really excited to see how successful it will be. I hope it will be super successful, because it can set also a new standard for the loyalty marketing itself. Again, loyalty is always also about economics. So I'm also very interested to understand a bit there how it can be shaped so that you can actually scale the program, so that you actually have a sustainable long-term play, because it's always sad when you see like certain marketing activities or loyalty marketing activities being done just for a period of time and then basically being shut off because they don't work from an economic perspective. So I really hope that this works here. I think it has a huge amount of potential, and it just needs the right approach from the person that is championing that internally.
And
wish them a lot of
just
success.
like you said, yeah, I mean, it's a compounding game too, right? The loyalty thing. So as soon as, I'm sure you say, like, as soon as they get closed down, you're just like, oh man, because maybe the big success was just around the corner or something like that. It's always kind of more of a long-term process. But with the industries, what makes it really curious, I mean, what I had visions of in my head for industries where it would really be appropriate would be, number one, gaming. I mean, just like pretty obvious, seems like. But even like I even put on my tinfoil hat and thought, like, what if there were some bigger, like, overarching industries, like food, for example? Like, imagine, I don't know, like, it would be hard to get specific with a certain restaurant chain, because they're like, the options are just quite limited. You can't make that much content. But imagine if Coca-Cola did something, or like Kroger's did something, or like one of these umbrella companies that said, like, make a video about any of our restaurants or anything like that. And that, like, influencers can start to sort of get rewarded for some of their content that way. It just feels like, yeah, that potentially opens the window for a lot of potential use cases in the future. But yeah, Gianluca, before we put this particular topic to bed, is there anything you'd like to add?
It would be interesting, your idea with the Coca-Cola. It's like the one product since 100 years, and now they're like, let's make content about this one product. And you have micro influencers just pushing that. Would be kind of cool though. I mean, they've done it so many times also with the names on the naming campaign on the Coke, like share a
True.
Coke, I think it was. Yeah, share a Coke. Talk about Coke. I don't know. That sounds a bit weird, but like, yeah, something like that would be pretty interesting.
I mean,
I think
I went to the like World of Coke Museum in Atlanta, Georgia, where they actually have like, they made a museum out of the first Coca-Cola factory. And they have like a fountain room at the very end of it. And there's like pillars, and it has literally like almost every Coca-Cola product there. It's like, it's huge. And you get like a plastic cup, and you can go to each of the fountains and like actually try everything. And it was insane to me how many like companies are actually under the Coca-Cola umbrella.
yeah,
It's
that's
insane,
true, yeah.
actually. And that's what made me think about that, because when you get to Coke, yes, you have all the different Coke flavors, but you also have like Dr. Pepper, you have Fanta, you have like all of these different drinks that all belong into the same thing. I mean,
Yeah.
that's sort of where I would see something like this happening, because that's what L'Oreal did, right? L'Oreal is started to get back to it slightly. It's actually like a culmination of 16 different brands that are under that umbrella. And you actually then get rewarded for posting products about any of those 16 brands. So that's also quite interesting, is to see like maybe it becoming, I don't want to say like centralized, but at least like a little bit more overarching and being run by, sort of the parent corporation rather than like individual ones. I also found that kind of exciting.
Which is also interesting, speaking of brand loyalty then, because the example with Coca-Cola, I mean,
Ecosystem
even L'Oreal.
loyalty. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's not if you talk about Coca-Cola, you're not thinking about Fanta, Sprite, and all the others. Sprite is
Mm-hmm.
Sprite, Fanta is Fanta, Coca-Cola is Coca-Cola. Those are the brands, right?
Yeah.
Not the company that owns them. So that's also an interesting one, that it's not specifically based on the L'Oreal products, but it's on the
Mhm.
L'Oreal group. So that's also interesting to see how they're using
Yeah.
the group and all the products for the loyalty program. But yeah, hopefully it's going to be super successful, and we can talk about it in 6 months, how it did change something, or how it is
And how
going
we were
really
the
great.
first 3 people to actually cover this on a podcast, and we knew this months before
Exactly.
anybody else. There you go. Cementing us as the source of information. There you go. Awesome. Awesome. And I can totally picture people saying, hey, I pick Sprite over 7-Up, not because of the flavor, but because it's a Coca-Cola product. Why not,
Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay, moving right along. We've got another really interesting one. We delve into the blockchain topic pretty frequently, and that's because it is kind of interesting the way that they've been trying to like do rewards. The last thing we talked about was MetaMask, the biggest non-custodial wallet that are doing a rewards program. At the end of the day, we basically settled on the fact that it's not a loyalty program, it's a rewards program. You get this for doing this. Then we had an article that came out, though, just a bit ago by Avalanche about, can blockchain make loyalty marketing programs better? So this was kind of an interesting one. It actually, like the first half of it, we can skip over because it's kind of just about the history of loyalty programs. But where it really starts to get interesting is when they talk about that blockchain component and the relevancy of it in the current day and age. Because there's a couple of things to take into consideration when you're actually looking at the blockchain like aspect of these things. And again, when we're talking about this, we're talking about the tech, we're talking about how the tech has affected people in the past and how it can continue to do so in the future. And that all starts basically with the wallet and the digital identity, which is kind of one of the cruxes of this entire thing. One of the more interesting parts about that is that when you have this sort of digital identity, which, by the way, in itself is becoming one of the most relevant topics that people are talking about now, as a way to like, beat AI, fake identities and stuff like that, having that one overarching digital identity becoming super important. We've heard of, the Apple ID that's really starting to go around and become something. You've got like the world thing where you literally have your retinas scanned at different locations around the world. That's a casual side project from Sam Altman. It's becoming an important thing, and the like decentralized, blockchain wallet is just as relevant in that conversation. And that's why we delve into this particular topic, which is the wallet address that transcends international borders. Loyalty marketing programs have an opportunity to access a truly global market. So yes, there's the global aspect of this. The fact that because of these platforms, you can actually have something like this be international. But before we start on this, maybe we should set the stage here when it comes to like blockchain loyalty and like the Web3 space in general, because we've dabbled. There have been a multitude of different platforms that have sort of masqueraded and paraded as a loyalty program, only to end up being basically an airdrop program. But yeah, there was a lot going on. I don't think. I mean, I'm guessing, Gabrielle, if I were to ask you if any of these programs that have been out so far, you would truly call like a loyalty program, if any of them actually qualify, or if you can think of like one exception to this. But yeah, I mean, most of these have really just been airdrop-driven sort of campaigns that people have tried to extract from as much as possible. Would you agree with that?
100%, yeah. And to be fully honest, my take on this is that most of these people don't come from the loyalty market, so they don't really understand loyalty in depth, and they just try to put a label on their technology and just try to find the use case for their tech instead of understanding really the market, the loyalty market in this case, and trying to find a very clear problem first of all, and then solution that they can offer, which is then enabled by blockchain. Because at the end of the day, it's not blockchain that will make the solution. It's actually the same as with AI. It's not AI that makes a solution, but it's actually understanding a certain market very, very deep, having that, let's call it unfair advantage, that you know something that nobody else knows, and that you can actually then solve that problem with a piece of technology. Again, like, not a lot of people understand loyalty really, really, really in depth, and I think that's the main issue. And on the other side, it's also, I think, kind of a buzzword in the Web3 space to use loyalty, because again, everybody understands loyalty programs. Everybody can kind of connect with them. Everybody has a loyalty program somewhere. So it's kind of, I think, an easy way how to make your technology sound more tangible. But at the end of the day, again, when I also was reading the article, yeah, it shows like, if you understand loyalty, you understand that they don't understand loyalty.
Yeah. I mean, one only has to look at like our first basically 2 episodes where we just literally talk about the difference between loyalty programs and rewards programs to actually fully understand what that actually entails and like what the nitty-gritty is. And it sort of gets into, an overarching point about, what sort of ended up affecting the blockchain space at the end of the day. I think its success got in its own way at the end of the day, where it was being lauded first as a technology, and then as soon as people noticed that you could start making money off of it and that it was completely unregulated, then people started flooding in, and it became more about the money than anything else. And that was kind of one of the chief differences, I feel like, especially lately. But yeah, when it comes to, I'm trying to think of my own sort of exceptions to this. I mean, you have some different IPs, but again, all of those IPs are still based on assets that people hold and that they hope that the price will increase. So, like, there's not that much genuineness in a lot of what they're doing.
I mean, not to brag, but honestly, the only exception in the intersection blockchain and loyalty is Kiwi. Literally. I don't want to promote ourselves, but it comes more from the fact that we work in loyalty since more than 10 years. So we actually understand and spend most of our time with the market instead of with the technology. If you spend 90% of your time with the tech and 10% with the market, you automatically don't have certain insights. It's not just in loyalty, and it's just about us. It's like every person that is very, very focused on a specific topic just understands that topic so much better, and can also then bring solutions that actually have much more value. So I think it honestly, and it doesn't even have to do with technology, blockchain itself. It has to do with technology in general. Like a lot of people, when a new tech comes out, they try to find solutions for problems that don't even exist, just to try to push the technology. And I think that's really the main issue that also happened in the blockchain space. And I think on top, what is difficult in the Web3 space is that you have the whole crypto side, which is one thing, which is speculation. So that's kind of simple marketing mixed with financial engineering, and you get there. But blockchain is an infrastructure technology. Like, you need to understand infrastructure, you need to understand a lot of topics that are not super straightforward. It's not like you can just go from a superficial perspective. We use blockchain to optimize and to make reconciliation and settlement process more efficient. Like, this is not something that on a daily basis you talk with your friends about, hey, reconciliation and settlements. It's something where you need to understand one market very, very deep. You need to see, okay, there are actually these issues, and how can you apply this? And everything else, to be fully honest, it's more superficial understanding of the market, in this case loyalty, and on the other side trying to push your own tech towards a certain market because you have the feeling that there's a lot of potential. But I mean, we did the same mistake at the beginning because we were thinking about, okay, this use case could be interesting, this use case could be interesting. But between being interesting and solving huge problems where you can make a lot of money, you can become profitable at a certain point, and you can actually give a lot of value to the players, there is a huge difference in between.
Yeah, the fact that you call them players is statement enough. But yeah, totally. I mean, Gianluca, also to you, like, this has been like a decade long journey for both of you. I mean, has there been any sort of area where you were talking? I mean, like, because of the whole blockchain thing, you guys have been there from the beginning and seen the space, back when it was super small, and then seen it grow, rise to popularity, rise to euphoria, to making headlines, to going down, to seeing sentiment fall, to now seeing governments adopted and everything like that. How has sort of the transition been? Like, I guess the main question would be, how has this, how would I say it? The sentiment around the industry, how has that sort of affected business-wise how everything has gone? Like, do you actually notice that there's less business that comes in when people are bearish on crypto? Or like when suddenly, you have the Genius Act that comes in that like makes great regulation on stable coins, that suddenly there's like an uptick in business and chatter around it? Or how has that been in your experience?
It's really easy to explain it. If we're in a bull market, it's very loud. If we're in a bear market, it's very quiet.
I mean, fair. Yeah, fair.
It's like, but I have the feeling that's literally financial instruments one-on-one. We're at peaks, everyone screams buy. We're at troughs, everyone screams sell.
Yeah.
Or everyone silently whispers sells, I would say, not screams, because usually it's almost, if you look at the charts, it's basically like a volume chart,
Yeah.
in the sense of not actual money transfer, but in terms of decibels. The higher the higher the price, the louder it gets. That's what I would say. And especially when the bearish market, or when the price goes down, because also there, yeah, you can talk about bull and bear markets. The question is all about time horizon. It's not really, we're not in a bull or in a bear market just by saying that.
Yeah.
If you look at the yearly chart, maybe we're in a bull market. If you look at the daily chart, maybe we're in a bear market. So depending on how
Like
people's
today.
time
Yeah.
frame,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Depending on what people's time frame look like, you're either in a bull or bear market. Overall, you can literally talk about the economy of human civilization as being in a bull market, literally since the
I
start
guess that's
of
true.
financial instruments and financial markets. It's just
I never zoomed out
up.
that far.
Exactly. If you do that, you just see this, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Very.
I think it's all a perspective on time horizons. And I would say I'm gonna say in the crypto market, not in
Mm-hmm.
the blockchain technology
Yeah.
industry, but in the crypto market, there aren't time, like at least in my perspective and what we've experienced, is the time horizons of projects or of people in general who dwell in it. They're not in 10, 20, 30, 50 years. They're in quarter one to quarter two, maybe even month
True.
one to month two, you know.
Yeah.
Especially with the advent of meme coins, where you expect one day to the next 100x, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, I'm out of here, or on to the next
Yeah.
one, you know. So I think it's a little bit about that.
But I
But
think honestly that. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was gonna then go to the article, but go ahead if you
No, I just wanted to say I think that that's exactly like when you actually build a solution that solves a certain problem,
yeah.
it's not affected by bull or bear market. I mean, if we look at our business, it doesn't really matter in what kind of market we are. We're just growing, and because we have actually a solution that gives a lot of value, right? So I think that's if you focus on crypto, then you're like kind of in a trading mindset, meaning that you look at bull or bear markets, look at volumes, you look at prices and all of that stuff. If you don't care about that, if you actually just build a solution that is valuable, it's a completely different story.
Mm-hmm.
You don't, and I mean, we started with us, we don't really have like, now this dip, it's not that we have less business because the market dipped.
Yeah.
I mean, we anyways don't mention crypto. We anyways don't mention blockchain when we actually sell to companies. So I think, again, more companies in this space should actually do the same. Just build a solution that is valuable, that solves some problems, and then you won't have that issue again.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
if
it's
you
the
go to
age
the
old. It's the age old topic of no one really truly cares about the technology
yeah,
as long as it solves their issues. If tomorrow Apple comes out with the I don't know, whatever number they're at, A7 chip or so, and they claim that it's 100 times faster, and everyone storms out and buys that iPhone, they turn it on and it's half as slow than their previous iPhone, they're all going to start raging and they're going to be like, what the heck is going on? No one cares about how many cores it has and all the stuff that they advertise and talk about. And that's sometimes also how, yeah, sometimes the crypto and blockchain spaces kind of get mingled into each other, and they're being used alternatively, and yeah, just as loyalty. I think, to maybe bring it
Yeah.
back to the topic, that's
Mm-hmm.
sometimes how loyalty is also being used and abused.
I
In
mean, it
fact,
was really. Yeah.
if I may add, just one thing that I wanted to comment from the beginning, actually, on that article is I feel like the headline already says it all. What
How come?
perspective they're coming from. They're
Mm-hmm.
calling it loyalty marketing program.
Yeah, that's true.
Loyalty is customer experience. Marketing is about product, price. If you take the traditional 4 Ps, it's product, price, place, and promotion. Yes, loyalty programs are used to promote, of course. They are used as sales tools, they are used as marketing tools, of course. All of that is true. But it's not the main topic of loyalty programs, is not to sell you on a product that you don't want. It's not
Mm-hmm.
like I'm going to use the loyalty program to sell your product that you didn't even want from the beginning. And it feels like sometimes these headlines or these loyalty programs are kind of pushed to have more user adoption. Could it be maybe, since this is Avalanche, to have more users use their blockchain and their wallets? Obviously, more wallet creations is always good for them. They show that there's more users. So it's used almost as a promotion, not, okay, how are we actually gonna incentivize engagement? How are we gonna make the user experience better?
Mm-hmm.
That's I feel like is the biggest topic here, at least in my opinion.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, the most important, and just there's a quote I always hear about the blockchain markets, and that is, when you're selling a house, the first thing you talk about is never the plumbing or the electricity. You know, it's all about the flashiness, the pictures, the location, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But like the functionality itself shouldn't be mentioned unless people really want to dive into it. But one of the really
120 meters of plumbing.
yeah. Unless the person buying is a plumber. I mean, there's always exceptions, but you know. One of the things that I really found interesting, wait, it's here, was this one paragraph. This was like one of the only ones that I found like mostly relevant, which was, I'll just read it out loud here for a second for people that might be listening. The parameters for current loyalty marketing efforts are very much determined by the loyalty program provider. However, if platforms were to build a loyalty platform on a public blockchain or create one governed by a public smart contract, such an approach opens the door to unprecedented levels of transparency and autonomy. A shift like this could have a huge impact on the way loyalty marketing looks like in the future, with programs adopting a more universal and decentralized approach. One way to achieve this is through tokenization, converting loyalty points into digital tokens that holders can store, transfer, or trade using their blockchain wallet.
Honestly,
Gabriela immediately wants to say something.
No, but like
you go ahead.
That's exactly what I meant before. Like the person that wrote this specific piece of article here never talked to a head of loyalty. Never. Never. Otherwise, you would know that no loyalty program provider or no, let's say, executive of a loyalty program provider wants to have unprecedented levels of transparency and autonomy. It is literally like, at the end of the day, a loyalty program can almost be looked at as a small government. So you have the government and it is an economy, right? And which government wants that you take control away and just give it to anarchy? Because that's what it says. You can do whatever you want with your loyalty points. That's not the logic of it. That is literally not the logic of it. If I get miles and more doesn't want that I spend my miles and more miles onto an Emirates flight. It's very simple.
Yeah.
Like they might offer other redemption options with partners of them, like Marriott Bonvoy, for example, because they partner up together. So they say, hey, it makes a lot of sense. There is a certain brand fit. There is a certain logic in my customers or my members actually use Marriott and the other way around. So that's exactly what I mean when you spend 90% of the time with the technology and 10% of the time with the market, you have exactly those results. Because at the end of the day, brands don't want that you can just do whatever you want with the loyalty points. Like if you just read some certain terms and conditions, like American Express, for example, what they have in their terms and conditions is that you don't actually, like, they kind of loan you points, and that's from a tax perspective, because otherwise you would have to tax it as an income tax, right? So there's so many small nuances to the market that you need to understand, and you need to be very deep into it so that you can actually then create a solution that makes sense. And in this case, it's very superficial. And I mean, we hear the topic of trading loyalty points, I think, since 8 years now. And there is not one player that actually made it happen. So
true.
And I mean, I remember one huge project that actually comes from the Intercontinental Exchange Group, which basically providing the technology for NASDAQ, etc. They created that kind of, they wanted to create that wallet where you can store everything, loyalty points, coupons, cash, etc. I think they got like 500, 600, 700 million or more as an investment. They're now worth, I think, 50, 100 million. So they're basically up to grabs if someone is interested. They bought even a loyalty company. They scared away all the customers. So
wow,
that's really the thing. If you try to push something into a market without really talking to the market, the more you talk, and again, that's not just loyalty, that's with every market. The more you talk with the market, the more you talk with customers, the more you talk with vendors in that space, you actually start understanding what the problems are, what are the most important priorities, etc. And then you can actually build something that is valuable.
I mean, the
No
example
brand.
that you made could be an interesting case study in and of itself, actually, in the podcast, just to like go over the entire process and what happened and how it failed and everything. Goodness.
And why it failed. They built up a lot of users by giving free money away. So if you registered at the beginning, you got like $10 worth of Bitcoin. So that was they actually also want to make you store crypto, etc. in the wallet. So that's really the issue, is really not understanding the market and really trying to push something into it that you don't know yet does the market actually want.
Right.
So I think that's really the outcome then. I mean, also if you read the other, I think the other example was the direct to wallet marketing, where instead of sending emails, you could send directly rewards and discounts, etc. I mean,
Wait, I have it here somewhere. Here.
if you just think very high level, how many people use actually a wallet?
And how many wallets are
Microcosm.
integrated? Yeah, and how many wallets are integrated with their usual devices and systems that they actually get a notification saying you received it?
Yeah, like these are the things where I'm asking myself, like, why? Like, why are you trying to reinvent the wheel? It just doesn't make sense. I mean, everybody has an email account. Everybody. So now, why should I get my discount on my wallet? Where if you ask the average person, they don't even know how to open a wallet.
One case that I would still see, though, that makes sense in this whole blockchain topic. I mean, I don't know, not necessarily maybe with the way they're doing it, but a little bit in the direction of what you were saying, or no, about the identity, like the one digital identity. In one way, blockchain could solve that, or at least could give the technology for something like that in a way that it's decentralized and not owned by someone. But one thing that I do see that's pretty cool is the fact that blockchain allows that peer-to-peer direct connection, no matter the entity, no matter whether it's a person or it's a company, it's a business. So one thing that I do definitely see, and it also, it's since it's a public ledger, at least in terms of activity that runs on the blockchain, it does give a certain cool user experience once you're in it, that if you do certain activity that is asked by, for let's say if they had a loyalty program that ran on the blockchain, they could, the smart contracts or the systems that they built could automatically check the wallet and reward the user or customer automatically based on certain criteria that they have to achieve.
But you don't need a public chain for that.
No, 100%. No, I mean, thing that with the identity, with the global digital identity being the use case that is that is being used across all businesses, all entities, as an identifier. Like today we have passports. The passport that I use, no matter what country I go to, it's a standard. It's standardized identity.
100%.
And if that same logic with digital, in a digital way, with blockchain, then where myself, I don't know, I go somewhere, I buy something, I do something else, I do this activity, that activity, and if I'm part of a loyalty program that asks for, let's say, I don't know, I get 100 points if I do certain activity, the moment I fulfill them, it automatically runs, and it doesn't matter where I did it, doesn't matter what the requirement is, they can sort of build around that identity. There I see a cool use case. I mean, that's also one reason why we use blockchain technology, is because it allows that essentially you can look at a data set that is public from the perspective of, or public, it's visible from various entities in a way that it doesn't disclose information about the users, but still gives you enough information. Exactly. But it gives you enough information to take action on rewarding a user, for example. So that use
Mhm.
case, I see. Maybe I was a
Again,
bit
like,
all
I
over the
think
place in that, but
using
I
blockchain
think that's
in the background and as an infrastructure makes
yeah.
sense. Thinking about the whole topic of full transparency, everything is
Yeah.
fully public. From my perspective, that won't work. I mean, the biggest asset of a loyalty program is their members. That's what they actually sell, for example, to partners. So if you open that up and everybody can access those members. So if I tomorrow want to send my points from company, I don't know, airline B to all the Miles and More members, just because they are on a public ledger and I see all the wallets, like what value does that then have for a loyalty program?
Mm.
Like, why should I actually partner up with the loyalty program if I can access it for free?
Yeah, that's true.
So
And actually, that's
where,
also something that is being done now, anyways, already on blockchain
Yeah.
or in crypto. You see
no, but
projects
that's what I'm
sending
saying.
their tokens to all the holders
Correct,
of a certain NFT or the holders of a certain token.
but that's what I'm saying. Like, and I mean,
That
let's be
is
fully honest.
direct to wallet marketing, actually.
Yeah, but and who cares about it? Like, in the sense that who checks their wallet? Because it's not that maybe, okay, you have notifications on where you see, I just got something, but there is no value. Like, the biggest value of all these platforms, etc., is their users and is the data behind these users. And one can talk about how fair it is that these platforms have a lot of data and they monetize it and the user doesn't get anything. At the end of the day, they get something, they get the service. Now, one could say, hey, you could share some of the profit, etc., so that the user actually even wants to share more data, right, with the platform. But it's a completely different topic. That's rewarding for your data and incentivizing you to actually share more data. Again, has nothing to do with blockchain. That's why I think, for me, the biggest learning, and I mean, I'm happy in that sense to see that, because saying, okay, they're still very far away from the depth of know-how that we have. So I mean, competition, you can do it on a product level, and then it's more on a network level. So the bigger you get, the more difficult it is to compete with someone. So if you can build Instagram today, fairly simple to build it, but to get to, I don't know, how many billions of users they have, 1.5, 2 billion users.
Yeah.
That distribution is a bit more difficult to achieve, right? So it's a mix of both, but from my perspective, it really shows that the whole blockchain ecosystem still needs more player that actually really focus on a market and on a niche instead of focusing on the tech. This is like my main learning if I look at this article, because there's some good approaches like interoperability. They talk about interoperability and cross-brand, etc. 100%. I mean, this is our daily business. We literally work 24/7 on this topic, right? So it makes sense, but there are so many more details behind this topic that you need to really dive deep. I mean, if you look at the loyalty ecosystem itself, there are so many different parts that you can talk about, from the tech side, from the servicing side, how you do campaigns, the different levels on the tech stack itself, where you have the front end for customers, where you have the points engine, where you have the infrastructure. There is so much stuff that is going on, and there are, like, even if you just use normal tech, you need to decide what kind of niche actually you focus on. And we see so many companies that, for example, just build points engines. They're extremely focused on building that layer of the tech stack, because it already is so expanded from a feature perspective, that you need to understand that so well to actually build a product that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, we learned ourselves, like, we have a lot of different solutions, but at the end of the day, we're also very straightforward when we talk with, for example, with clients. We tell them very clearly, look, if you're looking for a white label solution, there are many more players out there that actually make it better than us, because this is not our focus. We built one, it's good, it already has a lot of value, right, that it can provide, but it's not best in class. If we talk about points exchange infrastructure, yeah, there we're best in class.
Mhm.
And we also always clearly say that this is our USP. So if you use our white label, the main benefit that you have is because it's connected to the points exchange infrastructure, and meaning that every time you want to connect with another brand, it's literally a click. And so I think, again, it's nothing to do with tech. Like, it doesn't matter if you use AI, blockchain, if you use very normal, let's say, if you build a normal SaaS business, you need to understand the niche super well. And you always need to start super small. That's also one of the things that, again, most don't understand, is like they start thinking globally from the beginning, want to cover as much as possible. You see it also in this article. There are so many approaches that they talk about, instead of talking about one specific approach and diving deep into that one. I don't know if it's just me, by the way, but I see you always circling.
No. Oh, is it buffering for you?
Yeah.
No,
back.
I see everyone perfectly normal.
Oh, okay.
Same.
And it's good.
Yeah.
But to touch on what you said, I mean, one of the most interesting parts there is Avalanche team. I think you know who to turn to if you guys are actually looking for advice on actually creating something in the loyalty space that's valuable and everything. On X, it's Gabriele_QBX. Just send over a DM. I'm sure he'll be happy to to give a couple of tips and everything.
Better
but it
an
is
email. I don't
better
read my
email. There
DMs
you
on
go.
X.
I don't know if I want to divulge that, but we'll err on the side of caution and not do that for now. But hey, it is really interesting, and I do think that the topic of like overall identity and digital identity is a topic that's probably even worth its own conversation, maybe in a later episode, because there is a huge, there are a lot of conversations that go on about that, and about reputation scores, about stuff like that, because that had already also been used in wallets in a strictly financial sense. But there's not just that. There's also, attitudes, there's spending habits, there's all kinds of things that you can get into if you want to talk to about that like dystopian future where like everything you do is actually tracked, where people were so against it before, but now it's starting to feel like an inevitability. But at the end of the day, yes, I agree that like to a certain degree, I mean, like Gabriela said, the way that the article was written kind of feels like somebody that's never had anything to do maybe with like strong and real loyalty programs before and only rewards programs, who was kind of had like what you would call a shower thought, like, it would be cool, man, is if we could actually have this and this. And that sort of then developed into, the article that we're reading now, without wanting to get to like, it's got to do with, I guess, experience at the end of the day, and people that have experience in the industry. I mean, you've just heard it within the last couple of minutes, the way that it can be improved upon. And like, I think you would agree, Gabriela, that like there is a lot of potential when it comes to loyalty in the space. It's just, like you said, never been used properly or never been like implemented properly, right?
100%. Like, it's much easier if loyalty experts use a certain technology than if the technology experts start to sell their tech into market, because you just like need that know-how. But again, it's not just loyalty, it's in every space. Like, you have to go deep into certain topic before you can actually, I mean, take the example of Elon Musk with SpaceX. He first started learning everything about rockets. Everything, every detail. Started talking with people that actually build rockets, started talking with people that sell rockets, etc., to understand the market so deeply and to see how can I make that rocket 100%, 100 times more efficient, right? And I think that's the first step you have to do. It doesn't matter in which space you go. If you want to grow tomatoes, you first have to understand, how do I actually grow a tomato? You don't start thinking about the tech that you use to grow tomatoes. So I think it's more a general approach on how you, or general, let's say, thinking on how you approach certain problems and challenges, right? And the article has a lot of good inputs. I mean, I'm not saying that they're completely wrong, but it's very superficial, and you see that there's not a lot of depth of know-how in there, and
And it
that's
goes
where
to
I think should be pushed more.
yeah. I mean, it's just speaking to like one of the most basic things, which is the whole like, consulting industry, right? If like you said, if you're delving
100%.
into something, you talk to an expert on that thing. And it does really feel like a lot of the time, especially with a lot of these Web3 programs, that they'll want to do their rewards platform. I don't think it's ever occurred in any of these preparation meetings where somebody says, "Hey, maybe we should do like a 1-hour session with a loyalty expert or consultant and actually have him give us some tips about what we should do." Maybe someone
Yeah,
brought that up at some point, but it was probably shut down really fast. Like, doesn't matter.
and
People want rewards. That's all they care about.
100%. And I mean, if you think about it, you never heard Vitalik Buterin from Ethereum talking about, hey, you should do loyalty on the Ethereum chain, which
Yeah.
actually would make the most amount of sense because it's the one chain that is the most developed, that has the biggest community behind, that has the technology that is actually so far that you can use it. It's like those chains that actually have a very clear use case or can at least serve a lot of different use cases, and they know they're very generalistic. They're like an infrastructure, and the market should build on top of it. Like the experts come and then use that infrastructure. It's a completely different approach, right? And you start seeing maybe those chains and those L1s that need to find a bit their way into the market. They try to then take and pick out specific topics and say, hey, you could do this and this and this. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Fair. Fair. I mean, there's always a lot that we can talk about when it comes to to loyalty on the blockchain. We've had our fair share of experiences and seen our fair share of just cataclysms, tomfoolery, whatever it is, from a lot of people trying to get into it and ultimately not being able to make it sustainable. I
get
guess
out
tends to be
again.
one of the biggest things. Sorry?
Get into that intersection and then get out pretty fast because they understood
Yeah,
it's very difficult.
100%,
And I mean, it took
100%.
also us, like we're now working since what 8 years on this topic,
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah,
it's not
you're not going to
something
figure it
that
out
you
overnight.
do. No, they're not figuring out overnight, and you have to have a lot of conversations with a lot of different people to actually
Mm-hmm.
understand.
Well, let's jump then over to a topic that is also very, very interesting, but for a different reason. And that is, it's honestly because of a keyword that I really liked hearing, and that I think everybody kind of likes hearing the term, which is infrequent flyers. And this one was really interesting because it's a headline about Virgin Atlantic, where they announced their program called High Five, which specifically targets people that fly on their airline, but not too frequently. So basically, they have this program just to sort of give it in a nutshell. It's still like a part of their loyalty program. You still have their points and the miles and everything, but this is an extra way to get miles where you can essentially register or retroactively put in 5 separate flights that you've had in 5 years, and you get this 12,000 point bonus upon completion of those flights. Now, they're bringing this out, and they're making it retroactive all the way dating back to 2021, which means, just to be completely clear and specific, that if you have flown Virgin in 2021, 22, 23, 24, 25, then you're already eligible for this 12,000 point bonus. And that is for one single flight, hence the term infrequent flyers. And they're calling it the High Five program. It's very, very interesting. Just to add like a little bit of extra context. So the vice president of Flying Club and CRM at Virgin says, our newest way of saying thank you to those customers who choose us whenever they can, no matter how frequently. For our leisure travelers in particular, we know that this will ensure that they feel the love from Virgin Atlantic. After all, loyalty flies many different ways. And at Flying Club, we believe it should be for everyone. So let's start directly with you, Gianluca, for this one. Is this a marketing gimmick? Is this a very smart play by Virgin Galactic? Is this something that's going to be, also maybe making the rounds towards other airlines? Like, honestly, my first impression when I read it is, oh, this is brilliant, actually, because it tackles so many different groups. Like, when you talk about people that fly once a year versus people that have the frequent flyer status or senator status with an airline or whatever, that feels like a much smaller group. And yes, they end up using the business more, but it's a much broader audience. So what are your first takeaways upon reading an article like this one?
So first of all, I think it's actually quite genius what they did,
Yeah.
for several reasons. One, and maybe just to touch on the point that I was talking about before about marketing and loyalty. In this case, they already have a well-established loyalty program. It's on, people use it, all good there, okay? Now with this is a promotion that they're essentially doing. Call it a campaign, call it a highlight within the loyalty program or for the loyalty program. So in this case, yes, this is a marketing action, so to say, that they are using to push their loyalty program. And one of the reasons why I feel like this is so genius is that, given they also push it to enough people so that enough people see it, but anyone who in the last 5 years has had 1 or 2 flights here and there, and obviously it's high five, so you need 5, would probably think to themselves, wait, I get a 12,000 bonus if I flew 5 times in the last 5 years. Let me sign up. Let me check it out. Let me go see if I did that. And if they did, they sign up, they get this 12,000 point bonus points. I'm not part of the flying club loyalty program that they have, so I'm not sure what 12,000 points gets you, but I imagine that it is a number that gets you somewhere that you can start exploring the redemption option that they have. And I believe in the article they actually say that it gives you, I think, a return flight. I think it's approximately the amount of points you need for a return flight.
Here.
So, perfect. There can be enough points there for a round trip transatlantic flight in economy. Transatlantic even, so it's intercontinental. Okay. So with 12,000 points, you get a full round trip flight to Europe from the US, for example. That's amazing.
Huge.
So if in the last 5 years you flew 5 times, hence infrequent flyer, you get this massive bonus. Of course you're going to check it out. Of course you're going to go see if you had 5 flights. And if you didn't, you most likely will think about, hey, I'm just going to do what, like, let's say I need 4, I have 4 flights. Of course you're going to think about, maybe I'm going to fly somewhere. Maybe I need to fly.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, maybe I need to fly somewhere in the next, month or so. Why not take Virgin instead of the other airline that I usually take, so that I get this 12,000 bonus. You sign up, you fly with them, and you're immediately engaged in the loyalty program because you get a substantial amount of points that gives you a tangible reward with the round trip. And you most likely think about them just in general. They're top of your mind, most likely, the next time you think about flying. So who says they're not going to do something like this again, with high 10?
100%,
something along those lines. So I think it's brilliant what they did here. It's truly a genius marketing activity or marketing initiative for the loyalty program.
It feels like it certainly ticks a lot of boxes so far as, like, number one, just for awareness. Like, news like this already makes its way around, like, frequent traveler communities, probably to a high degree. So you can already see the Reddit posts now. Hey, if you've flown Virgin at least once a year in the last 5 years, you can basically get a free round trip transatlantic flight in economy. Like, that, just as a headline, as a buzzword, is something that, like, gets that word of mouth effect extremely fast. And then, like you said, the people that did the 4 flights recently, that's absolutely going to compel them to do that 5th one. Or the people that already flew, this year and once a year in the past 4 years. I mean, that the brand then sticks in your head, right? It's like, for the future, for the rest of your life, you're going to remember that you basically got a free, longer return flight just from, like, doing something that you never actually expected to have a reward for in the first place. That's a nice extra, like, little psychological way to make the loyalty thing happen. So, Gabriele, on your side, Is there anything extra that you want to add to what Gianluca mentioned, or how's it looking for you?
Yeah, 100% agree with him. I absolutely love it. I think more than a marketing activity, honestly, it's a super strategic move because at the end of the day, you have maybe 10, 20% of the members of a loyalty program are actually frequent flyers. That means you have a huge long tail of members in there that are not super active, and not because they don't choose you as an airline, maybe, but literally just because economically or other reasons they can't fly more. So if I think about, let's say, Swiss population as an example, a lot of people make holidays in Switzerland or around Switzerland, so they just go with the car, meaning there is no reason to take a flight, right? Now, if they do a trip in the US, if they do a trip in Asia or wherever they go, and then they take your airline, right? They are actually loyal to you, but it's not in that amount of a business traveler, as an example, that travels every 1, 2, 3 weeks. Why are they not loyal to you? Like, why shouldn't you reward them for their loyalty? So I think, again, it's a super strategic move to actually activate all these 80-90% of long tail members that are not frequent travelers, but that actually are loyal to your brand. And I hope that a lot of other airlines do the same, because again, there is a huge problem with loyalty programs that the long tail is not being engaged enough. And the problem is that they don't see the value in it because they don't actually get a certain reward for it. So giving the chance to these members to actually get some valuable rewards out of it, it's literally genius. And it is completely into how you should do loyalty, because again, loyalty has different forms. You have different segments in your member base, right? And you should cater for all of them at the end of the day. So if you just focus on business travelers, obviously you will attract business travelers, but you have so many passengers and so many members that you won't attract in that moment, just because they think themselves, okay, I anyways fly once a year, so just let me get the cheapest flight. And as soon as your brand becomes a commodity where people look for how cheap can I get it to get from A to B, you lost the game, because you will compete only on price, and you can compete less on product, on service, and customer experience. So if you can bake in this kind of customer experience for your members, that completely changes the game. Because as Gianluca mentioned, like somebody that then knows, okay, I have 3, 4 flights, for example, I just need 1 or 2 more. In that moment, I'm not checking on booking.com flights from A to B. I'm going directly to Virgin Atlantic and I'm checking the flights from there. And that's where I think you as a brand should aim for, that people don't think about where do I get the cheapest flight, but actually with which airline do I want to fly, and what kind of airline do I actually like, and I see the product as valuable, I see the service as valuable, plus on top I get the cherry on my Sunday, because I actually am loyal to them. So I think, again, super strategic move, super smart, best example of somebody that exactly knows the problem of their member base and found the perfect solution for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of a part of that group in particular, so I know exactly how it feels. You know, if you fly, like for me in general, I would say on average I fly once or twice a year, and that's exactly the sort of psychological effect that you have. Is like, you know, when you look at business class, if you look at these like frequent traveler, like senator status or whatever it is, it just feels so far away. It feels so unattainable that when you then start looking at some of these programs, you think, yeah, you know, what's the point? I don't fly that much. And it starts to feel like, you know, you just think in your head, oh, this is for rich people and people that fly for business. And yeah, having something like this immediately sort of makes you feel a little bit more included, you know? It's like the sort of impact that it has, and it's like, "Oh, okay, like, I'm up here with the big boys now, you know, I'm booking free flights and stuff." It's like, I feel like something like that is quite priceless. And just to add a little bit to it as well, if you can't recall how many flights you've taken, you know, they're actually taking everything into consideration. So, they're actually going to have a progress tracker in its app, in early 2026. So you can literally then register the past flights that you've had and just have everything, in one place that you can see all together. Basically, yeah, just having that visual representation of, you've flown with us already 4 times in the past 4 years. Thank you for that. And now one more, and then we can reward you with this crazy thing. But this, I mean, we always talk about the economics of these programs. Something like this has got to be hella expensive, though, right? Like this, bringing about something like this. Is this like, I mean, just okay, you're shaking your head. I'm wondering, like, you're talking about rewarding quite a big group of people, probably, a transatlantic flight, essentially, assuming everybody claims it and everything. So, I mean, why is that not necessarily the case? Just based on like your reaction and yeah, just diving into maybe the economics of a program like this versus the L'Oreal thing that we talked about in the very first article.
I mean, you have basically two drivers when you look at this. One is you will get a huge loyalty boost from your customers, meaning they also will start booking more flights and not just going back and looking at how many flights they have. So, and just my assumption is that if I fly now 2 or 3 times in a year, it will count to those 5 years. So, if I now actually see that in the last 2 or 3 years I've flown 3 times, it makes it much more probable that I actually now book in the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months another 2 flights, right? So, first of all, it boosts customer engagement, it boosts revenues from your customer, it boosts customer loyalty, it boosts brand reputation. Like there are so many crazy benefits that come out of such a strategic move, right? On the other side, there's a clear funnel. Like if you send this message to 10 million members, right? First of all, they need to react. So out of 10 million, maybe just say a number, 1 million reacts. Okay. They start actually tracking their flights, putting in and say, okay, I flew maybe five times. I mean, they have the data. They know already before how many members actually apply for this, right? So already from that perspective, I know this many points can actually be issued because I know how many members booked that flight, right? Because everyone that is not at that 5 flights needs to buy another flight, right? So you automatically make more revenue with those, right? That actually say, I'm at 4 or I'm at 3, so I'll buy you. So you push revenue from that perspective. All the others that actually had 5 flights, you know already today how many are there. Of those, you need to see how many registered for this let's say high 5 club, right? From those that actually get the points, you already know what is plus minus your redemption rate, right? So you see also, and you can calculate pretty well how many of those points will actually be redeemed. On top, the flight doesn't cost you, like the costs are so marginal of having another, let's say, economy seat booked, right? It's never what we see when we book a flight. Like a flight that maybe costs, I don't know, $1,000 might cost the airline at cost $100, $200, right? Plus, you always have that topic of yield management in the sense that the airline gives certain seats to the loyalty program where they say, hey, look, throughout this period, I can give you this many seats that your members can actually redeem with points. Like if you try to book a flight with miles right now to Dubai, you can forget it. Like if you want to get a business flight to Dubai with miles, can literally, like, almost impossible. And from the 15th December to the most probably 15th of January, it's literally impossible to get a flight because they won't give out any, like the airline won't give out any seats for the loyalty program itself because they know they will anyway sell them. So what is the point of letting people redeem their miles on flights that I anyways know I can sell, right? So
yeah,
there's so many drivers from an economic perspective to go into it that they know pretty well how much this will cost them. And again, the benefits that you get out of it are far, far, far superior than the cost that you will have with this action. So that's where I think the economics make perfectly sense in this case. And again, super strategic move and again, super genius, really super genius.
I mean, the fact that we're talking about it and the amount of coverage that it's actually received, like it was by far, I think, the most covered of the articles that I was looking at when I was diving through the different articles to talk about today. I think it's been covered by dozens of different, not only loyalty but also business things. Maybe just because of that, like sort of innovative aspect, and because for a lot of people, myself included, it's like the first time you see something like that. Do you think, Gianluca, maybe jumping over to you, do you think something like this then also has a future, maybe for other airlines or for other businesses or something like that, or like really starting to tackle people that aren't necessarily that sort of elite level of frequent user that you're used to, but actually going towards the more, dare I say, layman user that there might be?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that just as Gabriele was talking before, and I said, yeah, it's a genius marketing initiative. I do believe that they not only strategically relevant, most likely going forward, but initially I had the feeling that it's a great marketing initiative because they talk about specifically giving a bonus of 12,000 points.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't talk about anything else, or at least
Yeah.
as far as I understood, that's mainly it. So it sounds like a one-time, one-off thing where, yeah, most likely anyone who reads that article or hears about it or a friend of a friend says, hey, you should check it out. If you flew 5 times in the last 5 years, you'll get 12,000 points. It's a transatlantic flight worth of points. Amazing. Okay, let me go check it out. I'll sign up, you know? So I see it as a marketing initiative, maybe also to boost loyalty program acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
So all as the Gabriel says, the long tail of people who don't sign up to these loyalty program because they just flew once or twice with Virgin Atlantic, they might now sign up because they can check out if they have the 5 flights.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm most curious about, to be honest, is to see, because I think it's so cool how they called it infrequent flyer users or
It's a
infrequent
great
flyers.
buzzword. Yeah.
It's so cool. It's such a good it's such a good balance to the frequent flyer program term that we all know. I'm really curious to see if they will, or if they already planned or they already have a strategy of how they can make use of that term, of maybe there is a way of rewarding infrequent flyers on a long-term basis, on a not just promotional basis like this one, where it's like, okay, you flew 5 times, cool, here's 12,000 bonus. And from what I read before in the snippet that you had on, is
Mm-hmm.
that it automatically gives you the points if you're eligible and if you're
Yeah.
signed up. So it's also pretty cool. You don't have to think about, let me track it or anything like that. It even said that they'll show a progress bar. So they're already thinking about it more than just the promotion that they talk about, but they're implementing like specifically UI into the app so that as an infrequent flyer, you know you're making progress there. So
Mm-hmm.
that is a bit of a tell that it might be something that they keep and they might play around with it going forward. I'm really
Yeah.
curious to see how they'll do that. That there's going to be something. I'm sure there's going to be more cool stuff that they'll do that is targeted towards infrequent flyer. And if that's something that works well, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in the future it'll be an actual thing. You
Yeah.
know?
I mean, it makes you really think that maybe some of the more interesting pieces of data are actually going to come from the second airline that announces something like this, or the third. Because in this case, you do have the novelty of it all. They do have first mover advantage basically
Yeah.
with this kind of thing. So that is causing it to then be covered more than it normally would. So if
Hmm.
suddenly a Lufthansa were to announce something like this, or KLM, or whichever other airline, um, like how would that then be received, and how is that going to go? It's definitely something that's interesting. And it honestly partly makes me think about a trend that we had been talking about, I think 2 episodes ago, which was that interesting trend where engagement and registrations with loyalty programs was rising, but the actual loyalty itself was going down. And that was kind of also really curious, because you do see, and maybe this matches with like this evolution and growth in adoption and popularity of loyalty programs, that the field, it feels like maybe a huge attention battleground at the moment where like all of these companies are noticing that their loyalty programs are actually garnering some really good high value customers here, and that A, maybe it's worth putting some more money in, B, maybe it's also worth like innovating in a little bit just from like a very high level perspective. And that's why we're seeing some of these companies really starting to bring out these programs that like not only alter a bit but sometimes like radicalize an entire like industry or something, where you say, oh my god, like this has never happened before, we never seen this. The micro influencer campaign from L'Oreal, now this like sort of free thing for infrequent flyers. Maybe as like a nice sort of well-rounded question overall to sort of end this episode, um do you guys kind of see this in the same way? Because it sort of seemed like loyalty programs have been pretty like standardized, at least in the past, and that now we're seeing more and more of these like crazy new initiatives or campaigns going around that could fail. You know, it could very well misperform. But do you see this maybe as being a stage where bigger companies are willing to risk, you know, innovating and potentially fail if it means that they can have a loyalty program that trounces all of the other ones just because they were the ones to come up with it first? This was not on the docket at all. This is just like me rambling, but it's like it just made me immediately think about it. So I'm curious if either of you guys have any sort of thoughts, any sort of theories about this sort of thing.
In general, I think that brands are understanding more and more that their loyalty program is a super strategic piece of not only technology, but one of the tools that they can actually use to really retain and enhance their whole customer base and really boost profits at the end of the day. So, and again, there's so many more ways how you can monetize your loyalty program. Like if you look at the airlines, they sell their miles as an example. So I think more and more brands understand that they want to be part of that game. And you see it a bit like with airlines started, for example, with selling miles. Now you have hotels that actually are moving into that direction. As soon as some other brands start understanding, hey, wait, I have like 100, 200 million members in my loyalty program. There are like a couple examples like Walmart Plus, like Adi Club, etc. And they see that they can actually monetize a huge amount of those activities and can really create a new revenue stream. From my perspective, they will all jump in, and that will just boost the whole loyalty market. And these kind of activities like or the strategic moves like Virgin Atlantic just did, from my perspective, this is setting a new standard. Like this is not just doing a cool promotion or a cool campaign. This is literally elevating how you should launch and manage a loyalty program by catering again to the frequent travelers and to the frequent flyers and infrequent flyers, which automatically means that other airlines, it's not that it's a must, but they will start seeing at a certain point that they lose customers because of these strategic moves. So they will automatically start going into it. And I think those are exactly the let's say those strategic moves that push the bar higher, and that at the end of the day make it much more valuable for customers to use a loyalty program. So I think that's exactly what competition and innovation does. It pushes the bar always higher and providing more and more value to customers. And that's exactly what competition is here for, honestly. And I think again, these kind of examples are amazing for the industry. And I mean, that's also why I went into this business, because we believe that in the next 5, 10, 20 years, with new technologies, new standards that are being set, etc., there will be a huge market coming out of this. So super exciting to see these kind of news.
It's also an interesting sort of, I feel like, megaphone moment for all of those companies that have loyalty programs, and that's that you cannot be complacent at the same time.
100%,
because people are innovating all the time, and that people should actually constantly be thinking, no matter how successful your loyalty program is, you never know when there's going to be one of these Virgin Atlantic, you know, announcements that comes out that just sucks away all of the attention from everybody else, right? So
think about Nokia, think about Kodak.
I swear I was thinking about
think about blockbusters. Think about a lot of brands that were industry leaders and suddenly they got snapped out like this.
Mm-hmm. 100%. And before we close this one out, Gianluca, are there any final thoughts? Maybe either on any of the articles that have come out on the industry as a whole, on what Gabriele just mentioned.
Just that innovation is inevitable. I mean, really,
Right.
that's just how it is. New generations come up, new technologies come up, things shift, the way people think shift based on. I mean, we see it now. One of the fastest growing sales channels or sales channel or way of selling is the live feeds or the live
Yeah.
streaming. That's the word that was
Mhm.
talking about. Live streaming sales is so interesting. It's something that, if you think about it, telemarketing or telesales was a big thing. Maybe I don't even know how far to go back, but like maybe 10,
20
20,
years.
even nowadays it's still a thing, but obviously less watched. TV was massive, everyone was on TV. Advertising was on TV. You would advertise on TV. I haven't watched TV in I don't know how many years. And anyone who's probably born past 2000, or let's say even say 2010, probably don't even know what TV in the classical sense is.
Mm.
They are on social media. Everything is fast paced. The attention span is small, and also these companies are innovating at a pace that you see new things coming out every year that maybe back 10 years or 20 years ago it was every 2 years a new breakthrough would happen in terms of technology or in terms of the way humans interact with one another and with technology. So it's inevitable, and I think for anyone who doesn't innovate, they'll just be left behind. I mean, I was also thinking about Nokia and all the
Yeah.
phone companies where iPhone came and everyone's like, what is this? Ha ha ha. And then a few years, BlackBerry. And a few years later, we don't even know what those brands are anymore. Sony
Kind of makes me
Ericsson.
think of like the sort of sense of urgency around the innovation as well. Like, do you think that some of the other airlines' loyalty, like directors, woke up and like saw the article about Virgin and like their
100%.
heart skipped a beat, or they jumped out of bed and were like, oh, we got to do this?
Yeah, 100%.
And you always have, I think you always have the first reaction of kind of a bit of arrogance. I mean, Research in Motion, the company behind BlackBerry, the first reaction was like, what is an iPhone? It doesn't even have a keyboard. It can't be that a phone works without a keyboard. I remember an interview, I think it was of Steve Ballmer, one of the co-founders of Microsoft, when he was talking about an iPhone. I was like, who wants to buy a phone for $1,000? I think now the iPhone is $2,500, and people still camp in front of the store when it arrives. So you see that always the first reaction of, I know it better. I'm doing this since 10, 20 years. So, and Virgin is not like we're not talking about a huge airline. We're not talking about a huge loyalty program. So I'll bet that all the head of loyalties, all the managing directors of these loyalty programs that are much bigger than a Virgin will think, nice move. We know it better. I think they will wake up and then see, why are my users storming towards my customers, my members storming towards Virgin? And then most of the times they start waking up and saying, wait, there's maybe a point in doing that. So it's always like that. Innovation pushes most it's new players, or let's say smaller players, that can move much faster, and they actually innovate much faster, and they also kind of can try more things and have less of an issue of failing. As soon as you're a very large brand, you're a very large company, you're much more conservative in trying out stuff and being less innovative at the end of the day. So I think they will wake up and then they will starting to say, you know what, we need an infrequent flyer program, an IFP.
It's funny the way that you mentioned the way people talk about it with the denial at the end and accepting it later. You immediately made me think of the 5 stages of grief. But if you think about it, it's the same, right? You've got the denial. What is it again? Bargaining, anger, depression, and acceptance. I guess they go through all those stages at the same time, don't they? So
I would think
this
more
has
about the
been
change management process instead of the grief process.
true.
But yeah, I'm with you.
Oh man, this has been great. First of all, guys, thank you for your time. Anybody that has any sort of interesting tidbits when it comes to the loyalty market or the loyalty industry, as you can see, as you could have seen from the past episodes, we're very curious and interested in learning more and more about this kind of stuff. So any sort of curious tidbits that you may have, be sure to drop those in any of the comments. We're always going to be on Spotify. We're always going to be on YouTube. And if you want to comment on the X post, go for it. Absolutely that as well. Be sure to follow us on all of the appropriate channels and everything. And guys, this has been great. I'll be honest, like when we talk about the innovation aspect of the business, I think those are like my favorite conversations that we have on the show. And because we were able to talk about two of those things here, like I mean, we talk about all kinds of things, right? We talk about different loyalty programs that come out. We talk about different statistics and stuff. But when we really talk about like this is brand new and like how well do you think it's going to perform and like what do you think the reception is going to be and stuff, for me those are like the best conversations that we have on here. So today was super exciting. I hope we get more of them in the future episodes. But yeah, any final takeaways, Gianluca, maybe first before we close the show out?
No, let's keep innovating.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
It was super exciting as well. Yeah, I love this episode. Super interesting topics, and also cool to see that. Yeah, I'm very curious about the infrequent flyer program, and as you said, let's bookmark for the
Yeah,
future
we're gonna
in
do
6
some
months and see how it
success
went
case.
for both
Yeah.
of the use cases.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Gabriela, how about from you?
No, also nothing to add. Thanks a lot to Virgin for giving us this exciting piece of news, which also made our episode so much more exciting. And no, looking forward to see all kinds of innovation and competition basically ramping up so that customers get more value out of at the end of the day all the products. So included loyalty promos.
100%. The loyalty space changes all the time and evolves and grows, and it's honestly it was a part that, you know, I come from like a media and like film production background, and delving into the loyalty space has honestly been one of the most interesting parts of it, because it's always sort of a thought in everyone's minds. At least it was, you know, back when they were still sort of I guess I don't want to say blossoming, but like growing especially in the digital space, and seeing how they have been becoming so much more sort of mainstream and prevalent has sort of bolstered also my like enthusiasm and curiosity for the entire thing. So it's really, really interesting to actually work in a space like that and see the progress that's being made, like in all of the different levels of business, big and small, institutions, governments, whatever it is. Like they're all sort of taking it in to a certain degree, and it's very, very fun to actually keep up with all of that and to be a part of it. So yes, one final time, Gianluca, Gabriele, thank you guys for your time. Enjoy Dubai for the foreseeable future. I'm guessing by the time we record the next episode, Gabriele, you're going to be back, right? You're going to be back home.
It's in 2 weeks, the next episode.
Yes.
I might be back home, but also then back in Dubai, depending with how meetings will go.
Exciting times for loyalty and for Kiwi. So hey, we're gonna keep
100%.
on hustling, and yeah, hopefully we get some interesting new articles that come out in the future. But for now, that is us signing off. Thank you guys so much for watching, if you're here until the very end, and we will see you in the next one. Take care, everyone. Ciao, ciao.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you.
guys. Ciao. Bye-bye. Thank
Bye.
you.